Hello and welcome. Relax, take a deep breath, and enjoy this story. If you like it, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Now, let's begin, and may you have a peaceful sleep. Chapter 1. The Secret of the Blood-Red Banquet. The evening breeze swept through the courtyard of the estate, carrying a faintly damp scent. Moonlight filtered through the thick clouds, casting a pale, ethereal glow on the ground, like a delicate veil. Erin stood at the entrance of the old mansion, gazing at the long-forgotten family estate before her. Every brick, every leaf seemed to whisper stories from the past. In her mind, she silently repeated the words, "The family gathering," which was her father's final request before his passing, urging her to return to the family and attend this grand banquet. She took a deep breath and pushed open the ancient wooden door. The faint sound of a bell rang as the door creaked open, almost as if it were reminding her that everything was about to begin. Inside, the mansion was brightly lit, as if time had not passed within these walls. In the center of the grand hall stood a long table, draped in luxurious red velvet cloth, with silverware, porcelain cups, and ancient wine bottles, casting a dim, eerie glow. All the family members were already seated, and the atmosphere was both strange and suffocating. "Erin, you finally arrived." The voice of an older woman broke the silence, and Erin turned to see her blood relative, Aunt Madeline. She was one of the elders of the family, with an air of nobility and always wearing a poised smile. Erin nodded and slowly walked toward the dining table. Her gaze swept over the relatives seated around the table. Each of them sat in their places. Their expressions varied, as if waiting for something. There was an unspoken tension in the air. "Please, sit down, my dear. Tonight, we have much to discuss." Aunt Madeline gestured to a seat beside her, signaling Erin to take a seat. Her gaze was deep and inscrutable, as if she harbored many unspoken secrets. After Erin sat down, she glanced around the room. Her relatives were all speaking in low voices, but whenever her eyes met someone else's, they always seemed to flicker with unusual emotion. A few of them looked particularly serious, while others seemed to be whispering quietly. Erin felt like she was trapped in a room with no escape, and the air was growing heavier by the minute. With a soft command from Aunt Madeleine, the banquet began. The clinking of wine glasses echoed sharply in the room, but Erin couldn't feel any joy or relaxation. Every relative seemed to be hiding some secret, exchanging glances without ever speaking aloud. "Erin, you arrived at the perfect time tonight," Aunt Madeline finally spoke, breaking the silence. "There are some things you need to know now." Erin's heart raced, knowing that this evening was far from ordinary. She had been taught to stay away from the darker side of her family. Her father and mother often emphasized certain family taboos, but they never told her the truth behind them. Now, it seemed that there was something important hidden behind this banquet. "What is it?" Erin's voice trembled slightly, despite her best efforts to remain calm. Aunt Madeline did not answer directly, but instead raised her wine glass and gently swirled it. She looked at Erin with a hint of mockery in her eyes. "You know, Erin, the history of this family is not as simple as you've been told. Each generation of ours carries a curse, a fate we cannot escape." The atmosphere at the table instantly became heavier, and the other relatives began to whisper in hushed tones, their voices filled with unease. Erin felt her breathing quicken. She fixed her gaze on Aunt Madeline, as if trying to uncover some clue, to understand the true meaning behind her words. "You are the heir to the family," Aunt Madeline continued, her tone growing more serious. "It is your responsibility to unravel the secrets of this family and restore our lost legacy. That legacy is not just wealth, but a long-lost history, one closely tied to a curse. Erin's heart skipped a beat, and suddenly, a vague image flashed in her mind. She remembered a dimly lit room, an ancient book being opened, with pages filled with symbols she couldn't comprehend. Those symbols seemed to be connected to her bloodline, like an unsolvable riddle. "But I don't understand," Erin's voice trembled. "I have no responsibility. I always thought I was just an ordinary person." "Ordinary," Aunt Madeline sneered. "Do you think you can escape this? Your bloodline has destined you to carry this burden. The history of our family has already pushed you into this vortex. You cannot avoid it any longer." As her words echoed, the relatives around the table lowered their heads, as though waiting for Erin's reaction. Her heart skipped a beat, and she realized that she had been drawn into a fate that had already been sealed long ago. "Are you willing to accept all of this?" Aunt Madeline's gaze pierced through Erin's soul, like a blade cutting through her heart. Erin took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping over everyone present. She knew that this was not just about her family's history, but about a monumental decision that would affect her relationship with the family and with the world. She slowly nodded, her voice calm yet filled with determination. "I am willing to know." At her response, the atmosphere in the banquet hall shifted abruptly. Everyone seemed to exhale collectively, but Erin knew that this was only the beginning of a nightmare. Her fate had already been set in motion. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Midnight. As nightfall descended, Erin tossed and turned in her bed, unable to sleep. The only sounds in the room were the ticking of the clock and the occasional rustle of wind outside. Her eyes were wide open, her mind still echoing with Aunt Madeline's words. Each generation carries a curse, a fate that cannot be escaped. Those words pierced her soul like sharp needles, swirling in her mind, refusing to dissipate. She sat up in bed and pulled open the curtains, gazing out at the pitch-black sky. The endless darkness pressed in on her, overwhelming her with a sense of suffocating weight. The wind rustled through the branches, creating a low, mournful sound, as if some invisible force was calling her from the shadows. Her heartbeat quickened, her mind filled with questions. Can I really bear this fate? She had never been told the truth about her family, her parents always avoiding the topic, until today, when Aunt Madeline had suddenly revealed it all at the banquet. How was she supposed to face all of this? As the night deepened, the world outside remained eerily silent. Erin felt that she could no longer remain quiet. She got out of bed and walked over to the window, opening it to let the night air seep into the room. The chill helped clear her head, but the oppressive feeling still lingered, preventing her from calming down. Suddenly, Erin heard a faint whispering from downstairs. It sounded like an ancient incantation, gradually swirling through the air, accompanied by shadows so thick they almost seemed tangible. She paused, listening carefully, a growing sense of unease rising within her. The voice seemed to be coming from the distant basement, the most secretive part of the house, a place that was rarely spoken of. Erin hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she decided to investigate. She knew that if she kept avoiding it, the family secret would remain unsolved forever. And tonight, it seemed as though something was destined to happen. She lit a small oil lamp and gently pushed open her bedroom door. The hallway outside was empty, with only faint light filtering through the window panes. With each step she took, the silence seemed to grow heavier, as if everything around her was quietly watching. She walked down the old hallway toward the basement, her heartbeat quickening. Each stone step beneath her seemed to hide some unknown secret. Her footsteps echoed in the empty corridor, reverberating in her ears. Finally, she reached the door to the basement, The door seemed unremarkable, an old wooden door with a brass doorknob, worn with age. It wasn't locked, and as Erin pushed it open, a musty smell hit her nose, the air thick with the scent of mildew. She stepped into the basement, the faint light from the lamp casting long shadows on the walls. The space was vast, but it felt hollow and cold. There was no decoration, only a few ancient wooden boxes piled in the corners, covered in dust. On the walls hung several blurry portraits, the figures in the paintings with serious expressions, silently guarding the room. The whispering grew louder, now clearly coming from deep within the basement. Erin's heartbeat quickened as she could almost feel the voice swirling around her, like some invisible force beckoning her. She followed the sound, moving deeper into the room, until she came to a corner of the basement. There, a door stood, thick with dust around its edges, as if it hadn't been opened in years. Erin took a deep breath and reached for the doorknob. With a slow push, the door creaked open. Beyond it was a dimly lit room, filled with old furniture and piles of documents. In the center of the room stood an ancient wooden chest. Erin's gaze was immediately drawn to it. The chest was intricately carved with complex patterns, seeming to conceal some long-forgotten secret. She walked toward the chest, her fingers brushing against the surface, and a sudden cold sensation spread from her palm. Erin held her breath, slowly lifting the lid. Inside was an old book, its cover engraved with the family crest. The edges of the book were yellowed, clearly well worn from repeated handling. Carefully, she opened the first page. The words were written in an ancient script, and they seemed to leap off the page. The bloodline of the family is destined for greatness. You are a part of it, and only you can break this ancient curse. Her heart sank, as if some overwhelming force had passed from the pages into her own body. The whispering grew louder and clearer now, as if the voice were speaking directly into her ear. You are the inheritor of fate. There is no escape. She squeezed her eyes shut, taking a deep breath, a heavy determination rising within her chest. There was no turning back now. Her family's fate was now bound to hers, inextricably tied together. Chapter 3. The Inheritance of Fate. Erin closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the power of the book surge into her body like a tidal wave. Her hand remained resting on the ancient book, sensing an indescribable heaviness. The words seemed to emanate from the pages, winding through her bones, each one like a warning. The bloodline of the family is destined for greatness. She realized that this was not just a family history, but a thread that wove her fate together with the family's and the world's. She suddenly opened her eyes and focused intently on the book. She knew that the curse had already deeply rooted itself within her blood. She was no longer an innocent bystander, unaware of the weight she carried. She was now part of this destiny, perhaps the only one who could break it. The whispers grew clearer in her ears, soft yet cold, as if softly telling her that there was no turning back. You are the inheritor of fate. You cannot escape this. The words echoed in her mind, like invisible chains locking her in place. Her heart began to race as her fingers touched each line of text, almost feeling that powerful energy flowing from the words. Erin suddenly realized that this was not just a book. This book carried the family's history over centuries and also held the key to her future. She quickly turned to the next page, and the text became more obscure, filled with intricate and difficult to read handwriting. Each page she turned seemed to weigh heavier on her heart. She read of the family's past, from the ancestors' glory to the successive generations' downfall, each one burdened by an inescapable fate. Finally, the last page of the book read, "To break the curse, the heir must complete the unfinished mission. Find the key to the inheritance and unlock the family's buried secrets." Her eyes fixed on these words, a surge of inexplicable fear and determination rising in her. What was the key and mission mentioned in the book? What was the inheritance? Wealth or something more terrifying? Images of the mysterious door in the basement flashed in her mind, and the whispers that had guided her there. She understood now. Family secrets were far more complicated than she had imagined, and perhaps even more terrifying than anything she had already experienced. Suddenly, Erin felt an irresistible call. She stood up, clutching the book tightly, casting one last look at the heavy door. This family, this ancient estate, held truths she had yet to uncover. She knew she had no choice but to keep moving forward. Only by confronting the past of her family could she truly understand her future. Without hesitation, she took the ancient book and made her way toward the basement. With every step, her heart beat faster, each one seeming to bring her closer to the unspeakable secret. Every breath was filled with tension and resolve. This was not just the family's fate, it was her own. She had no way back. Only by confronting this enormous riddle could she find redemption. Arriving in front of the door, she reached out to touch the carved symbols on it, feeling a cold current spread from her palm to her entire body. It felt as though this door was not just the entrance to a room, but to another world. She took a deep breath and gently pushed open the door. Beyond it, darkness still prevailed, with only faint light filtering in from a distance. Erin raised the book in her hands, and the light cast fleeting shadows on the ancient walls. As she stepped inside, the room was devoid of furniture, just dust-covered floors and broken objects scattered about. In the center, however, was a round stone pedestal with a carved stone slab resting atop it, almost as if it was the focal point of some ritual. She approached the pedestal, looking down and noticing a deep indentation on the stone that perfectly fit the book. Erin's heart raced, and she understood. This was the final step she had to take. This was not just the key to unlocking the family's curse, but perhaps her only chance to defy fate. She gently placed the book into the indentation, and instantly, the air around her began to tremble, as if the entire room was responding to her action. The familiar symbols on the stone slab began to glow, and a strange invisible force seemed to gather in the air. Erin could feel her body being drawn toward it, as though she and the ancient fate of this family were becoming one, inseparable. As the book settled into place, the whispers grew even clearer. No longer a vague murmur, the voices now spoke directly to her. "You are the last inheritor. You must make a choice." Erin squeezed her eyes shut and took a deep breath. She knew she was standing at a crossroads, where the future of the family and her own fate hung in the balance. No matter the outcome, she could not escape. The choice was before her, and she knew she had to move forward to find the final truth. Chapter 4. The Trial of Fate. When Erin gently placed the book into the indentation in the stone slab, the air in the room suddenly began to vibrate, and the surrounding symbols flickered with blinding light. Her body involuntarily felt drawn by a powerful force, as if the entire space was responding to her actions. She felt herself surrounded by an invisible energy, her heart pounding, and her consciousness briefly blurred, as though she had entered a space beyond reality. The whispering voices echoed once again in her ears, but this time, the sound was clearer, almost as if it was directly entering her heart. "You are the last heir. You must make a choice." She suddenly opened her eyes, and the scene before her changed dramatically. The dimly lit basement disappeared, replaced by a vast hall surrounded by towering stone pillars. The walls were adorned with ancient portraits of her ancestors. The figures in the paintings wore solemn expressions, as if they were watching her every move. The air was thick with the scent of age, silent and dignified, as if time had frozen in this place. In the center of the hall stood a high platform, upon which lay a massive stone tablet, covered in intricate symbols. Erin approached it, feeling a strange sense of familiarity wash over her. She knew that everything here was deeply connected to her family's history, and perhaps to herself. "You have come, Erin," a voice boomed, deep and echoing, seemingly coming from all directions. She looked around and saw a figure gradually materialize, standing before the stone tablet. The figure was an elderly man, dressed in ancient robes, his features unclear, but the depth and seriousness in his eyes made her heart race. "You have come this far, heir." The man's voice was full of power, as if every word carried an irresistible force. "What you bear is not just the fate of your family, but the only key to unraveling this curse." Erin's heart raced, her feelings of unease and doubt intertwining. She whispered, "The trial? What does that mean? How can I break the family curse?" The old man did not answer immediately, but instead slowly raised his hand, pointing toward the other end of the hall. Erin turned and saw a massive door standing silently at the far end. The door was flanked by intricately carved symbols, matching the patterns on the stone tablet. "Behind this door lies the secret of your family," the old man continued. "Perhaps your choice lies within. You must face your family's history, confront the failures of your ancestors who once tried to break the curse. Whether you can break the chains of fate depends on whether you can pass through this door." Erin felt an intense pull coming from the door. It seemed to have a mysterious force, drawing her towards it. A chill swept through her body, as if she were stepping into a foreign world. But she did not move immediately. Her gaze lingered on the door, filled with hesitation and unease. She knew what crossing this threshold meant. She would face the deep secrets of her family, the truths that had been hidden for so long. She couldn't help but think of the death of her parents, the constant whispers, and Aunt Madeline's words, "Only you can break the family's curse." She took a deep breath, trying to steady the trembling in her chest. She couldn't turn back now. Stepping forward, she walked toward the door. With each step, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. Her hand gripped the book tightly. Though each step was filled with uncertainty, she knew there was no turning back. As she reached the door, Erin paused, her gaze fixed on the symbols carved into it. At that moment, she felt an invisible force drawing her in, as if the entire history of her family was calling to her. She reached out her hand and lightly touched the carved symbols on the door. The cold sensation instantly traveled through her fingertips. The door did not open. The symbols remained silent, emitting a soft glow. Erin furrowed her brow and gently pressed the center of the symbols. As she did, the symbols on the door suddenly vibrated faintly, as though they were responding to her touch. The whispering voices once again became clearer, this time carrying a sense of command. "You must choose, Erin. Choose to move forward, or choose to turn back." Erin closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She knew that the real trial had just begun. The door before her might be her only chance, but it could also be her final trap. No matter what, she could no longer avoid what lay ahead. She placed her hand on the doorknob, gently turned it, and the door slowly creaked open, revealing an unknown darkness beyond, as though it were waiting for her to step into the unseen world. Chapter 5. The Maze of Time. Erin gently pushed open the door and a strange gust of air swept over her, enveloping her instantly. The air was thick with an indescribable mysterious force, as if it was emanating from the depths of ancient time. She unconsciously took a step forward, her eyes scanning her surroundings in awe. The sight before her left her momentarily frozen. She stood at the entrance of a winding corridor, surrounded by glowing bands of soft blue light, the walls inlaid with intricate metallic runes that radiated a mesmerizing glow. The runes seemed to have a life of their own, vibrating slightly with each step Erin took. With every footfall, the ground beneath her made a faint echo, as if the entire space was responding to her presence. The air carried an odd, unsettling scent, and Erin took a deep breath, but only felt a chilling, oppressive weight. Her heart rate quickened as she continued forward, and with each step, the scenery around her began to shift. The runes on the walls flickered, the lights flashing in and out, as though guiding her onward. But with every step, she felt an invisible weight bearing down on her. Around a corner, a heavy door appeared before her. The carvings on the door were intricate, the patterns and runes intertwined, forming an unsolvable puzzle. Erin's heartbeat quickened. She knew that beyond this door lay her destiny. It might hold the key to unlocking the family's curse, or it could be a trap, drawing her deeper into darkness. She inhaled deeply and slowly extended her hand to grasp the door handle. The handle was icy to the touch, as though it harmonized perfectly with the surrounding space. As her fingers brushed the edge of the door, a sharp, musical whisper suddenly filled the air, echoing in her ears. "You cannot escape, Erin. You must choose. Traverse the maze of time." Startled, she looked up and noticed the symbols above the door beginning to glow brightly. The symbols instantly became three-dimensional, spinning rapidly like gears, interlocking to form an enormous clock face. The hands of the clock moved at an excruciatingly slow pace, as if counting down to an irreversible moment. "This is the maze of time," the whisper echoed once more, its tone heavy with solemnity and command. "You must endure the test of time to find your true destiny. Every choice will lead you into a different time, with different outcomes. Will you break the chains of this curse, or fall into its abyss? Everything hinges on this moment." Erin felt the pressure intensify, the air around her growing thicker. She knew that she stood at a critical crossroads. Only by continuing forward could she hope to find an answer. But with each step, the weight of her decision grew heavier. Suddenly, the hands of the clock stopped, producing a sharp, crisp sound. At the same time, the door slowly creaked open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. Erin's heart pounded in her chest. She knew this path would not be simple. Every stone slab beneath her seemed to harbor secrets of time, and with each step she took, she would traverse different moments in time, facing both past regrets and future choices. She stepped into the corridor, and the surrounding light bands began to twist, distorting the scenery before her. Suddenly, an ancient clock tower appeared beside her, its face seemingly aware of her presence, guiding her with its ticking hands. As she moved forward, the time on the clock face began to blur, past, present, and future intertwining. She could no longer tell what was real and what was illusion. Then she realized she was standing at the critical juncture of her family's history, each tick of the clock reminding her that the past and future of her bloodline were directly linked to her decisions. Each step deeper into this maze of time meant more responsibility, but it also held the potential to unravel more of the mysteries ahead. As she continued to walk, the scenery around her grew increasingly hazy. Her eyes flashed with scenes of the past, visions of her ancestors, their efforts to break the curse, their sacrifices, and their eventual failure. She saw the faces of her parents gradually fading away, as if telling her that they had tried and failed. Suddenly, the scenes became clear again, and Erin saw a figure standing ahead. It was the vague figure of Aunt Madeline, her face bearing a complex expression, as if waiting for Erin to make the final decision. Only you, Erin, can change this. Aunt Madeline's voice echoed clearly in Erin's ears. You must break the cycle of your family. Find the path to freedom. Erin's legs trembled slightly as she stood there, understanding that the maze of time would test every decision she made. Each choice would lead her toward a different future. There was no turning back now. In the darkness ahead, only she could find the key to unlocking the family's curse. Chapter 6. The Lost Time. Erin continued walking through the maze of time, with the scenery around her constantly shifting with each step. The once radiant corridor began to blur, the light bands around her twisting as if time itself were wavering in her presence. Her pace quickened, and a sense of unease filled her. She knew she had descended too far into this labyrinth, unable to turn back now. Suddenly, the scene before her changed dramatically. The corridor seemed to split open like a rift in time, revealing another world. Her vision blurred, and when she opened her eyes, she found herself standing in a strange place, a towering clock tower. The hands of the clock moved slowly, and the walls of the tower were thick with dust and the marks of time. The sound of the clock chimed softly, yet there was a weight to the sound, as if it were reminding her that time, for her, was no longer a simple passage. "What is this place?" Erin whispered, her voice echoing in the vast emptiness, but it received no response. She stepped closer to the clock tower, examining every detail. The hands of the clock continued to turn, and time here lost its regular rhythm. Past, present, and future seemed to blend together, indistinguishable and elusive. As she approached the clock face, Erin suddenly saw her reflection upon it, but it wasn't the present version of herself. It was the future her. The Erin in the clock seemed weary, her eyes hollow, as if she had endured countless pains and struggles. "What is this?" Erin asked unconsciously, a sense of dread rising within her. At that moment, the whispering voice echoed once again, seemingly coming from deep within the tower. "This is your future self, Erin. You will see the choices you've made through the passage of time, and how you will bear the weight of your family's fate. Every decision will determine the future of you and your family." Erin's heart raced, and her hands trembled slightly. She looked up and saw, on the other side of the tower, a floating rift in time, as if it contained some unseen power. A force beyond her control seemed to draw her toward it, as though the other side of the rift held the truth she must confront. She walked toward the rift, her curiosity mixed with unease. Each step felt like walking into an unknown abyss, and the surroundings kept shifting. Images of the past and future flashed before her eyes. She saw herself as a child, her parents' faces slowly fading in her memory, and she saw the failed heirs who had once tried to break the family curse, only to fail miserably. Each scene was a tragedy, and each lost soul seemed to warn her the family curse had never truly been broken. Her heart wavered with doubt. Would she become the next failure? "You will either be your own savior or the ultimate sacrifice," the voice returned, carrying a tone of command. "Choice is your only power, but whether that power can change your fate depends on the decision you make now." Erin's vision blurred, and the rift before her suddenly widened, as if swallowing the entire world. She stood at the edge of it, unable to move. Her past self and future self alternated, the visions becoming more chaotic, and she no longer knew how to choose. "You cannot escape, Erin." The whisper echoed in her ears, like a ghost. "Your fate has already been sealed, but you still have a choice." Erin's heart was filled with struggle, trapped in the lost time, unable to distinguish illusion from reality. She could feel an overwhelming force pressing her to make a choice, yet her mind was still full of confusion. Could she truly break the family curse and escape this maze of time? Just as she was about to step into the rift, her gaze suddenly froze. She saw her future self again, those hollow eyes staring at her as if conveying an unspeakable message. Erin unconsciously reached out to her future self, wanting to unveil the mysterious veil. "You can do it, Erin. You are the only heir. You can choose to break the cycle of history." With those words echoing in her mind, a sudden clarity flashed in Erin's heart. She wasn't alone. She wasn't a helpless victim of fate. She was the heir of her family, and she held the power to change everything as long as she made the right choice. She took a deep breath, her gaze firm, and took a step forward, heading toward the rift, towards her future.